Right, we are now officially live, and we are very pleased and honored and privileged to have Adriana Marais, who is one of the top 100 candidates for the Mars One project. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so before we do anything, when people talk about Mars One, they're referring to a project where people, how many people?
24 people will be chosen from the 100.
24 are going to be sent to Mars on a one-way ticket. That means you go there, you don't come back.
You stay there. You live there.
Okay, so there are a lot of assumptions here. A, that you're going to make it there. B, that when you do get there, you're going to live there. And C, you're not coming back. So what are you going to do there while you live there? Live the rest of your days out on Mars?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit, because this sounds very far-fetched. It does sound a bit ridiculous, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, we've obviously traveled to Mars many times, and we've landed little rovers on Mars, so we know what the planet's surface is like. We pretty much know what the atmosphere is like. But before we get there, let's talk about Adriana. How on earth did you get to fall in love with space and want to go to Mars? What did you study? So we need to know a little bit more about you before we can actually work out where you're heading. So you want to give us a little bit of background?
So when I was young, I thought about being an astronaut. How many of you have thought about being an astronaut?
Well, that's good.
I thought about being lots of things. I wanted to be a writer, I wanted to be a farmer, but I also wanted to be an astronaut. And now that the Mars One project, I saw in the newspaper, was asking for volunteers to go and live on Mars, I sent my application, and 200,000 people also applied, and now they've narrowed it down to 100. Okay, but that's going forward too much. Let's go back.
Before we go, so when 200,000 people applied, what were the criteria? What sort of selection process did they make? They go, no, you don't look like an astronaut. I mean, were there certain things they were looking for?
You have to be over 18, so you guys will have to wait a while before you apply. But
just would have made it. Yeah.
But there were no other restrictions. Anyone who wanted to volunteer could go. So the kind of people they've chosen now are all different sorts of people. Some people are teachers, some people are lawyers, some people are business people, some people are scientists, some people are pilots, some people are comedians, all different kinds of people.
Even comedians?
Yes.
And they chose the varied group of people for a purpose?
So you want to make a village on Mars, basically. So you want all different kinds of people, just like villages here on Earth.
So okay.
So
you wanted to go to space, but then.
So at school, I liked science, but I also liked all my other subjects. So you should always study hard at school, because you never know where life is going to take you, maybe even to Mars. So don't forget to study hard, because if you do want to be an astronaut or anything else, you need to study hard at school. Do lots of reading, do your homework well, listen to your teachers, and read a lot. Okay, who likes reading?
Excellent. Yeah. That's what we like to see.
You learn so much from reading, and also watching YouTube videos on the internet. That's also a way to learn. There are lots of ways to learn. So you need to learn a lot, and then you can go to university when you finish school eventually. And I studied physics at university. That's the kind of science where you learn Newton's laws, where you calculate if you throw a ball, how far will it go before it hits the ground, how high will it go, how long will it take to get there. Physics tells us all of that stuff. Physics tells us about space, like how the planets move around the sun in the solar system.
And getting rockets there, and getting them back, hopefully.
Physics also talks about big stuff like space, but physics also talks about small stuff like molecules, atoms, electrons. Who's heard of an electron?
Wow.
Electrons make currents, right? When you plug in your computer into the wall, the current that comes from electrons. So we also study those in physics. So those are all the interesting things you can learn about when you study physics. And
but then you've just recently got your PhD as well.
Yes.
And what did you get your PhD in?
Quantum biology, which is the mixture of physics and biology. So lots of science.
Okay, so physics is studying the physical things and the forces that are together with that. And I think we have Maria all the way from Argentina. So thank you for joining us, Maria. I'll just put you on mute. And then obviously biology, life forms, and that type of thing.
Yes, we were studying plants, but also other kinds of photosynthetic organisms. Who said of photosynthesis? That's the way. That's the way that plants grow. They absorb sunlight energy and they turn it into other things that they need.
Brilliant.
So we study bacteria, which also do photosynthesis. We study algae, which also do photosynthesis, and plants as well.
Okay. Now you had a question. Yes.
Once I read a book about red planets.
You read a book about red planets,
Yeah.
and they actually call Mars the red planet. Why do they call Mars the red planet? Do any of you know?
Yes.
Why?
Because it has a lot of volcanoes on it.
Because it's got volcanoes on it.
It's got the largest volcano in the solar system.
Whoa.
Told you.
Okay, that is a big volcano.
They're not active anymore though. So long ago they were. There's another reason for the red. There's no lava. That's a good.
I think I know. Why do you think they call it the red planet? Besides the volcanoes? Yes? Red dust.
Exactly. Why is it red? What is it? It's something that we know.
No?
You know when metals start to break down and
Nothing like
what's the word?
rust.
Rust. The rust
Isn't it?
is actually iron oxide. So the mixture of iron with oxygen makes this orangey reddy color, and that's what makes Mars red.
I thought they painted it.
You think it painted? Well, I don't know how they got there to paint it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sending Adriana to Mars.
Nobody's been there yet that we know of.
No, no human has been to Mars, but we have sent little robots that are driving around the planet and sending pictures and videos back to us. But we haven't actually physically sent a human being, and that's what this is all about. But now, Mars One is not the only project to get people to Mars. There are other initiatives as well. Do you know of any of the others?
So NASA, who's heard of NASA? NASA is the United States space
Agency. Mhm.
So they plan to send humans to Mars in 2035.
And when is Mars One happening?
In 20 years' time.
In 20 years' time.
So the Mars One project, the one I'm in, that's why it's number one, wants to be first. They want to send people in 10 years' time. So 10 years' time, it'll be 2025, actually 2026.
2026. Okay. So now, you see this advert, you apply, you did read the small print. It said one-way ticket. That means you go there, you don't come back. You have a family, your parents, you have friends, yet you still want to go there, and there is a chance you might never come back at all. Why would you do it?
So I think the idea of going to Mars is really exciting, and I would still be able to communicate with my parents and my friends like we're doing now through video. Okay, there will be email, there will be Facebook, there will be Twitter, there will be YouTube on Mars.
Who will be the first person that you're sending an email to from Mars?
I'll send one to Living Math so you guys can.
We are going to know. So this is the deal. If you get there, we'll be the first people to get an email from Mars in the world. Wouldn't that be exciting?
So you might be leaving Earth forever, but you'll be seeing your friends and family again in video.
But then again, if things change in years to come, they might be able to visit, or you might still be able to come back if there's another mission that is taking people back.
Yes.
The planet is obviously not like Earth. Earth, we have beautiful oceans, we have mountains, we have air. Those things are kind of like missing a little bit on Mars. How are you going to survive on Mars?
So the Mars rover, who's seen pictures that the Mars rover takes? So as the Mars rover roves around on Mars, it's sending back pictures and also information that it collects about Mars back to scientists on Earth and also to you who can see it on the internet. So they have found, actually the Curiosity rover has found some water, ice, because Mars is very cold. It's further away from the sun than Earth. The Mars rover has found some ice crystals in the sand, exactly. So the water that we drink will come from the sand on Mars. The sand is full of rust, iron oxide, that makes it this really orange color, but there's also H2O inside there, so you can melt that and drink it. Where do you think you get oxygen from? I just gave you a clue. Water is made up of, what's the chemical formula for water? H2O. So where do you think you get the oxygen from? From the water. Okay, there's a way.
Say that.
Good.
So that is,
you can break up the hydrogen and the oxygen and breathe the oxygen. You can drink the other water that you keep, and that's how people will survive.
but now, a lot of the stuff is untested. We haven't ever done it before. Are they going to send a pre-mission to see if these things can be done? Because just to send people to another planet and to try and hope that you're going to be able to extract water and make the whole process work is a bit risky.
So actually the rovers are doing a fantastic job on Mars already, and the rovers will also help the human mission. So the rovers actually arrive there first. The Mars 1 rovers will arrive there first. They will store some water. They'll collect a lot of water from the sand. They'll store it in tanks. They will be intelligent rovers. They will actually build part of the settlement before the humans arrive. They will fill it up with oxygen so that the astronauts can breathe when they arrive. They will put the water in the storage tanks, which will be ready for the humans when they arrive. They will heat up inside the habitat before the humans arrive, so it's not minus 55 like it is the rest of Mars. It'll be 24, like this temperature, inside the house, even before the humans arrive. It's like a house. It's called a habitat.
How do you eat?
Good question.
A very good question. You will grow plants inside the house. So just like on the surface of Mars, humans can't survive very well. It's too cold. There's not enough, the atmosphere is very thin, there's very low pressure. Anyway, so the plants have to be kept inside the habitat as well. So you'll have a greenhouse like inside the habitat and you can keep those plants.
Wow, look at these questions. I'm loving this.
How do you make them?
Well, they're going to obviously take seeds and things with them. That would be very useful. Yeah.
Why don't you just take food from?
They will obviously take food with them as well, because you know in space you have what they call it's like powdered food, which they add water to, and then that becomes like a meal that they can eat. So I would assume that you would be taking enough food supplies to also back up the fact that the plants haven't grown yet.
Yes, if there's a problem with the plants, there will be other food in storage for the people to eat. Yeah.
Okay, right at the back there, yes. What about dairy? Because are you going to have fridges and stuff there?
Well, we won't have any cows, so dairy will be a problem. Cows are too big to take in the beginning.
Yeah, but cows always, they live on the moon, not on Mars. Yes.
So you need calcium from dairy products, right? So the calcium will have to come from some special kinds of plants rather than milk or cheese. So there won't be milk or cheese in Mars in the beginning.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know how big the atom besides the electrons going around? How far away?
Depends which atom. Which one are you thinking of? Let's say hydrogen. Hydrogen is a simple atom. It's just got one proton in the middle and one electron going around. It's called an angstrom, basically. Have you heard of nanotechnology?
Yes.
Nano means 0.901 of a meter. So it's like a half of a meter. So, yes.
Sure.
1,000 millionths of a meter. Much smaller than what you can see.
So then there would be
1,000
many.
millionths of a meter. This is a meter, 1,000 millionths of that. So you can't see an atom basically.
But you're saying that if the atom was this big, then how far would the electron be? It would be many millions of kilometers. Now I know you have a question. Yeah. Well, Yuri Gagarin, the Russian, was the first person in space, and he's obviously very famous for being the first person in space. Neil Armstrong was the first person on the moon, and he's obviously glad to be there too. Why should they choose you?
Well, living on Mars will be very difficult. You will need to try to be happy every day when you wake up, even though you might miss your back on Earth. You find there like different rocks, looking of fossils of some life that maybe once lived on Mars. So for me, these things are so exciting that even though I would miss my family and friends and Earth, I would miss swimming in the sea, I would miss the mountains, I would miss the animals, I would miss the plants, I would miss the people. But for me, the doing of the science is so exciting that I'm prepared to give it all up to be a part of this adventure.
That's very brave. Isn't it brave?
Yeah.
I think it's very brave. Or foolish. We're going to get to that in a second.
I didn't just make friends with that.
That's
So
perfectly
the
fine.
questions, there might be life forms on Mars, but obviously not like green little people walking around, but maybe tiny little microbial life forms, and that's part of something that you've been studying.
Yes, so we have an idea what Mars looks like. So you've seen photos or videos maybe from the Mars rover. So far, we haven't seen any evidence that there are things as big as us walking around there. I don't think there are. We've been looking at Mars for quite a long time. We haven't seen anything like that. What we haven't had a chance to do is look under the rocks, dig down and look under the ground. It's possible there that there's some kind of lichen or fungus or moss or algae or bacteria or some small kind of life form like that that could be living underneath. That's what we're going to go look for.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, we had a team from NASA here at the Cape Town Science Center. We had Dr. Catherine Coleman, who is a NASA astronaut, and we also had Dr. Ellen Stofan, who is the chief NASA scientist. And when she got back to the US, we as a human species are going to encounter some form of life outside of our planet within the next 20 to 30 years. She said it's not a case of if, it's a matter of when, which is quite exciting because that's almost the time where it's going to coincide with your arrival there. So not only would you be the first person on Mars, but you might be the first person to discover life on another planet.
So that would be extremely exciting to me. Another one of the reasons that I would be prepared to miss my family and friends a lot, to go and do that kind of, to be part of that kind of discovery and do that kind of science on Mars. So I'm not sure whether the life would still be living on Mars because Mars is a very cold, very dry place now. But long ago, 4 billion years ago, we think that there was liquid water on Mars. So Mars's conditions have changed a lot over the last 4 billion years. There's evidence just by looking at the patterns that rivers make or flowing water makes. The rocks look like on Mars that there was once water a billion years ago. So what we will already be looking for is the fossil evidence. So
but then you're saying that
now,
it used to be there, which means it might not ever be there ever again. So you're going to a planet that doesn't have any water there. Or there is definitely ice.
There's definitely ice now, but the question or the evidence shows that there was once liquid water flowing. So a lot of water probably left the surface of Mars when it lost its atmosphere and its magnetic field. The stuff is now getting in depth, but there was once liquid water on Mars. Now what's left are a few ice crystals in the sand, enough to drink for the people.
Okay. Yes, you have a question. That is a good question. In fact, it's probably one of the most important questions. You go to space, you can't keep it in the whole time. So how long does it take to get to Mars? So then, because that's a long time to keep it in.
7 months.
7 months to get there on a rocket. You're not going to keep it in for 7 months, are you?
No,
Not even 7 minutes.
I'll keep it 1 minute.
Well, let's ask. So then, if you are obviously floating in space, you're going to have to go to the toilet at some point. What does a toilet look like in a rocket?
So when you're in space, what happens?
I know.
What is the word I'm looking for? On Earth, we have what keeps us down. When I jump up, I fall down again. Gravity. In space, is there gravity?
No.
So what happens to the people? They float around. What happens to everything? It floats around. So imagine if you go to the toilet without using the proper equipment, it floats around.
And that you don't want.
Maybe it's full.
So then how do you get whatever you make, number 1 or number 2, to go down?
So I've never tried one of these space toilets, but it makes like a suction when you sit down on the seat, so that nothing can get out and float around by you. Maybe know more about
Yeah,
these
well, I mean,
toilets.
it just so happens that I do know a couple of astronauts, and they've been to the toilet in space many times, and what they were saying is that for a number 1, for both a boy and a girl, they have like a special cup that's got your name on it. So that each person's got their own cup, and then there's a long pipe. And what happens is when you go to the toilet, you switch on the machine, and it creates like a little bit of a vacuum, like a bit of a suction. So as soon as you hold it anywhere near you, whatever you make goes straight into the pipe. It then gets put into a big machine and processed and turned into drinking water. So they actually recycle their wee
Ew.
on the International Space Station.
I know.
Who wants to go to Mars now?
Oh,
Here's a question.
the number two is they don't recycle, which is a good thing.
Here's a question.
Yes, you have a question.
Why, if the suction, why do you do that? Because then the suction is going to take all the air out.
No. It's very, very. You see, in space, if you take, for example, a hair, and you push someone with that hair, all of a sudden, they will float to the other side of the room. That's all you need to get them to move. So only a little bit of suction will be enough. You don't need a lot. My problem is that if you're sitting on the toilet and there is suction, and then all of a sudden the machine stops working, you're going to have a lot of monsters floating around next to you, which isn't such a good thing.
But what about on Mars? Is there gravity on Mars?
Oh!
Is there gravity on Mars?
No.
Yes, there is.
Oh, there is gravity on Mars.
Do we have gravity on Earth? Yes.
How?
What is Earth?
What is the difference
Earth
in
is a
gravity?
planet.
But then you
Mars
can
is a
take
planet?
spacesuit off.
Well, you can't take a spacesuit off in Mars because obviously the atmosphere.
Pull a jacket.
But a little hat, you could do that.
Inside the house, you will be able to walk around in clothes like you were wearing now, and then you have to wear your suit. But there is gravity on Mars. It's like 1/3 of the gravity on Earth.
So that means that if you
jump
stood on a
3 times
scale,
higher.
if you stood on a scale, it would show that you were 3 times lighter. I need to get a Martian scale. That would be very good for me. So then, of course, if you're going to go onto Mars, that means if you jump, you could jump 3 times higher than your normal. Oh, then I could join the what's the high jump team?
Yeah.
I could show them how good I really am. Wow.
Make the house a balloon.
Well, what about the houses? Are they going to be balloons? How are they?
Yeah, kind of. So you need to pump all of the oxygen into the house before the people arrive, so that when they get there, they can breathe. So that's exactly what you do. You pump it full of air until it's pressurized like a balloon. Because as I said, the pressure on Mars is very low, so you need to pump it up until it's the same pressure that we have here on Earth now, and fill it up with oxygen. So it is almost like a balloon house. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. You guys have questions?
I have 2 questions.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have Wi-Fi?
Will we have what?
Wi-Fi. Now that is a very good question. What about internet? Because if you want to send emails and stuff, you need to have access to the internet.
So how do we send the signals around the Earth? What are these objects that orbit the Earth in the sky? So to be installed on Mars. 2 of them actually part of the Mars One project, and then many more after that. And these satellites will transfer information from Earth to Mars. So you can look on Wikipedia when you're on Mars. You can send somebody a message, like a WhatsApp or an SMS from Mars. You can send an email, and you can watch YouTube videos or sports games. You can do all of that stuff on Mars because of the satellites.
But now, it takes 7 months to get there. That's a long time to travel. I mean, I know that if you guys were sitting in a car going on your school holidays, you often ask your parents, are we there yet? Are we there yet? That's only a few hours. Can you imagine 7 months?
I'm not going to Disneyland.
Well, that's even further than that. Are you equipped to handle a journey that is 7 months long? Are you going to sleep for part of the journey? Can the rocket actually travel for 7 months without running out of petrol? Does it use petrol? How's that going to work?
So, well, when you're outside of Earth, there's no more gravity, there's no more air, it's space, right? It's empty space, it's a vacuum actually. So as long as you fire your engine once when you leave Earth, you start moving. There's nothing to slow you down, so actually you can turn off your engine at that point, keep moving with the same speed that you left Earth with. So you don't need to use petrol for that. When you want to change direction, when you get to Mars, you know you need to turn to land on Mars in the place where you want to land, where the rovers have already built the house. Then you need to use your engine again, and that's it. You also need to use your engine to slow down before you hit the surface to make it a nice, comfortable landing, and that's it.
Yeah.
Where will you get electricity?
What about electricity?
Very good question.
These are good questions.
Obviously, you need electricity, right? You have all of these Wi-Fi, and you want to watch TV, you want to melt your water that the rover collects.
And the lights.
Where are you going to get the power from? What do you think? Mars is part of the solar system, right? So that means what kind of power can you use there? A lot of people have them on their roofs nowadays to collect electricity from the sun.
Solar power.
Solar panels.
So solar panels will obviously be used to generate electricity.
Yes, so although Mars is further away from the sun than Earth, the sun still shines on Mars. The sun still comes up in the morning and sets at night. Mars also spins on its axis as it goes around the sun, so there's day and night. During the day, the solar panels will collect sunlight energy and turn it into electricity for the people living on Mars.
Wow. But now, let's go into something a little bit more serious. People have said that if you go to Mars, you're not going to be able to live for more than 68 days. And you still feel that you want to go knowing that, or do you not agree with those calculations?
So back in 1960 or something like that, before the first people landed on the moon, people also said it was impossible. Before Columbus went to America and discovered for the first time for Europeans, America, people also said, you're going to fall off the edge of the planet. Then they thought the planet was flat. How crazy is that? So whenever people do new things, there are always some people around who say, that's impossible, you're going to die, it's not going to happen. The point is that some of these people actually succeed. Some of these explorers actually discovered new land. The people did actually walk on the moon. Nobody died. They came back safely. So moving to Mars is just the next step in human exploration. And I think if we all believe in it and we all work hard and study hard and do science well, then we will come up with the ideas and the technology that we need to do.
Okay, so we're going to take 4 more questions, and then I want to ask you some serious questions. Let's start over here.
In 2013, I think, in my mom's work, one of their people went up to the moon and they dropped down without the rocket. And they fell down right into...
So does your mom work for Google?
No.
Does she work for Red Bull?
Yes.
Okay,
Wow.
so Felix Baumgartner, I think. So Felix is his name. He took a special balloon that went out of Earth's atmosphere in the stratosphere, and then he jumped with a special spacesuit, and then, of course, he parachuted down to Earth. What they didn't show you was all of the footage of when he was falling, because he got to a point where he was just doing this, spinning, and there was a chance that he wasn't going to make it. But because he was an experienced parachutist, he actually managed to land. And then a little bit later, a guy from Google, he actually jumped from even higher. So I asked the astronauts, would they use that as a method of, if, for example, there was an emergency on the space station, could you then get into a little device that would fly you towards the edge of Earth and then just fall towards Earth and parachute down? And they said, probably not. It wouldn't be advisable to do that. I mean, you have to be seriously well trained to do something like that. You wouldn't do that, would you?
I think I'll need some training if I was going to think about doing that.
Okay, all right. So the next question, yes, you want to ask something? Will there be a fridge in space?
So luckily on Mars, it's already so cold that you probably won't need a fridge. You can just leave the stuff outside. It's not really outside. But on Mars, it's quite cold. That's why the water in the sand is ice, because it's like -50. Who's been in -50 before?
-50 is very cold.
Where were you? In Antarctica. Places like Antarctica are that cold. So Mars is around the same temperature as Antarctica in the winter. So refrigerating stuff will be easy. The hard part will be to warm up the house to make it comfortable for the humans.
And that's where solar energy might help out a little bit. Yes, you have a question. Will the balloon house ever run out of air?
So as long as you have the solar panels functioning properly, that means your rovers can also keep roving around, and the rovers will just keep digging up sand, bringing it back to the habitat, and melting the ice crystals that is in the sand.
And will that be enough to keep you sustained?
So as long as nothing happens to the rovers will have this as their job every day. They'll bring tons of sand in every day. Water will be extracted, oxygen will be extracted, and as long as all the equipment is working, there's a lot of water in the sand in Mars, so that won't run out.
Have they started building these rovers?
Who knows? They haven't given specific details.
Well, that's what we're going to be talking about next. There was one more question. You want to ask your question? Okay, all right. So now we're going to ask the serious questions. Mars One as a project. Who is running it? And do they have enough money to actually make this happen? Because they've had a couple of complications. Can you just give us a bit of background to that?
Well, so they came up with the idea for the project in 2011. That's two guys who live in Amsterdam, Bas Lansdorp and Arno Wilders.
And what do they do for a living?
They're engineers. So previously, Bas Lansdorp was building wind power technology. Maybe you've seen these big white wind turbines that are near PB and some other places near Cape Town as well. He was doing wind power renewable energy. So he's an engineer. He builds these kind of things. And then he was an entrepreneur. So he was working in business. And then he had the idea that we can send humans to Mars in the next 10 years. So this was a bit of a change.
Well, I mean, for him, it's a no-risk policy because you're signing a one-way ticket. You know that you're not coming back. So if it's successful for the first 15 minutes, he's achieved his goal.
Well, I think if it's successful for the first 15 minutes, a number of other people will be very interested to follow soon on the footsteps of the non-profit, non-governmental foundation that managed to pull it off. I think places like China and Russia space agencies will be very keen to follow the developments that Mars One makes. And I think if people do land on Mars, a lot of other people will want to join them. So I think as long as the first team gets there safely, it will be a matter of time before lots of other people want to come too.
And now a more serious note is that you could die. I mean,
we will all die.
I'm aware we're all going to die at one point, but I mean, this is a reality that you could go there and things could just go very wrong, either on the journey or when you get there. Does that not scare you?
No, I think driving a car or going in an airplane could also kill you. So in life, you just have to choose. There's always a risk involved. But as long as you take precautions like wearing a seatbelt in the airplane or in the car, I mean, in the space shuttle, you do a lot of practicing first, just putting robots in the space shuttle. We've done that already, right? We've already managed to send rovers to Mars. So that part we've practiced. Now we just need to practice with the different technology that's needed to lift a heavier rocket, or the rocket needs to be more powerful to lift a heavier transit shuttle off of Earth. That we need to practice. The landing with this heavier thing full of the humans, we need to practice. But once we've practiced a few times with robots inside, so if it crashes and burns, we don't lose any humans, we just lose some money basically. Mm-hmm. Once we practice this a lot of times, it becomes more and more likely that it will be safe. But 10
years is a very short time frame, and I hear that Mars One doesn't have the kind of finances to do all these tests and to create all this technology. And of course, it's being run by two engineers who don't really have space experience.
So the idea that they had initially was to outsource technology. So they would go to companies who are already experts in building rockets. They would go to companies already experts building spacesuits, building satellites, and doing all of these things. But of course, they need money to be able to get these companies to build the things for them. The idea that they wanted to use to get money was actually to broadcast a TV show. So did you know that when you watch the Olympics on TV, watches the Olympics on TV, for example? Okay, whenever the Olympics is on TV, actually just by watching the Olympics on TV, you actually contribute some money to the Olympics. So every person who watches that on TV, actually through paying a TV license and things like that, you actually contribute to paying for the Olympics. So in the same way, the Mars One project wanted to make a TV show about Mars. Who would watch a TV show about the people going to Mars?
Who would watch a show about Adriana and her friends going up on a rocket and landing on Mars for the first time ever?
It would be a fun TV show, right?
Well, would it be historic, obviously?
So I think a lot of people around the world would be interested in watching the TV show. And as I said, just by watching the TV show, you actually raise money for the project. This was their idea. But so far, they haven't managed to film the TV show. That's why you haven't seen it on TV yet, because they haven't made it yet. So actually, they need to raise money first to get us all, who are the 100 left in the running, to fly somewhere so they can film the TV show. And that's what's going to happen.
But now 100 means you still need to get to 24.
So they're going to all fly us. They're going to fly us to one location, all 100 of us, and then during that time where we all meet. So I haven't met these 100 people yet. Me plus 99 people, but they're going to fly us all eventually to one place. So we'll do some training, and then they'll decide who are the 24 from those 100 who will actually go.
Wow. So now there are 5 people from South Africa who've been selected.
5 South Africans out of the 100. So that's very good. 5% of the total number.
That's not bad. That's not bad. The odds are pretty good. In your gut feel, in your heart of hearts, what is the chance? 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, up to 10 out of 10, that this mission is going to go ahead?
Well, when people ask me, do you think it's going to succeed or something, I like to think of what Nelson Mandela said. Have you seen the TV advert where they say what he said? It always seems impossible until it's done. So there's always going to be someone who says something's impossible, and maybe it's very unlikely that it can happen, but if enough people work together, they work hard to make their dream come true, it can indeed become a reality. Like I've said, walking on the moon seemed like a dream 50 years ago, but if we did it, humans can do a lot of things, can achieve a lot of dreams if they put their minds together and work hard. So if you have a dream or a crazy idea, I think you should don't listen to people who tell you you're crazy. Just try and do it, because a lot of ideas have started off as sounding crazy and later have become normal.
Unless you're being naughty.
Not too crazy.
So then you knew that when you applied for this, you could be the first person on Mars several years before any of the other attempts take place. What would happen if Elon Musk from SpaceX decides he's launching a rocket to Mars and he's bringing it back, and there are going to be people who are going to get there before you? Would that spoil the whole thing for you?
Well, it would be nice to be able to meet some friends living on Mars already when you get there.
Okay. See, she's always positive about the whole thing. I like that.
Maybe they can show you around, show you their favorite places on Mars.
But would that change your perspective of, do you still want to go, if that was the case?
Yes, so my reason for going to Mars is not because I want to be the first person to walk on Mars. That would be nice. Actually, I just want to see the place. I want to do the science that I want to do there. I want to pick up the rocks and look underneath them to see if there's something living under there. That's what I want to do. And even if there are people living there already, that would be great, because then there would be some people to show me around.
Okay, you have a question?
How do you know that you actually go to Mars and you don't land on another planet?
Good question.
Who's driving the rocket?
Not me, because sometimes I get lost when I'm going places.
Do you use GPS to find yourself?
Yeah, so mostly the computers will do the work of navigating. So your shuttle will be programmed to take you to Mars, and you will just be watching to make sure that you're on track, radioing back to Earth, communicating back with Earth to tell them where you are. They will watch you as you fly, and they will hopefully make sure that you land in the right place on the right planet.
And also, I saw the show that 2 boys went to the rocket and they took powder there and they made ice cream.
Was that Phineas and Ferb?
Yes.
Yes, that's a little bit more of a cartoon than real life. The birthday girl has something to say, yes? Why did you use Google Maps to find your way there?
So we have Google Earth. I don't know if we have Google Mars yet. Maybe that's one of the projects we can work on when we're there.
That would be quite
Maybe
cool.
Google Mars.
Good suggestion. I'm sure Google are listening and paying attention. Yes.
So you guys are all luckier than me, I think, because you're younger than me. So even if the Mars One project doesn't end up being successful and sending humans to Mars, I think it's going to happen at some point. Maybe I'm going to be too old, you know. I'm 30 now. In 30 years' time, I'll be 60. In 30 more years' time, I'll be 90, and then I'll be too old to go to Mars. So you guys are even luckier, because by the time you're 30,
Well,
maybe I can go to Mars.
but I mean, the oldest person who's been to space was John Glenn, I think, Senator John Glenn. I think he was in his 70s or 80s.
Okay.
But the fact is that you are right now at the age that when you go to university and you study all your little things, physics and chemistry and maths, hopefully, and of course, when they choose astronauts to go to Mars and other planets, you'll be at the right age, which is very exciting.
Maybe.
So then you could be talking to one of the first people on Mars here.
Maybe you guys will be one of the first people on Mars. Maybe by the time you grow up, there will already be lots of people living on Mars.
We should get their autographs before they leave, just in case one of them becomes famous.
I'm gonna order
Yes. Will there be a shop? How do you go to Mars without a shop?
So eventually, in the beginning, there will be so few people that you won't need a shop, because everything that you bring with you will be what you need. You'll bring enough backup supplies, you'll bring enough clothes for you to last for the time until the next group of people arrives, and they'll bring some new clothes, new pair of shoes, new toothbrush, whatever you need. But of course, if lots of people are living there eventually, if there are 100 people or 1,000 people living on Mars, then I suppose somebody will start out some kind of shop and they'll start building things on Mars. Like maybe you can build a new pair of shoes on Mars and go buy it from the shop. Maybe using a 3D printer.
That would be pretty cool. Pretty cool. Yes, you have a question.
And a washing machine?
And a washing machine, how are you going to wash your clothes?
Good point. We'll need some kind of washing machine because even on Mars, your clothes are going to get dirty. So there's some kind of shower on Mars. There's some kind of bath on Mars. So there'll be water. So we'll have to wash our clothes. We'll have to think about that.
I do know that in space, when an astronaut wants to wash their hair, they actually take a special soap that's got no water, and they just put it in their hair and they do this, and then they just dry their hair with a towel, and that's it. And a hair dry, your hair, you want your hair looking good at all times. I mean, your hair is in dreadlocks.
It takes long to dry.
That's going to take a long time to dry. So would you have a hairdryer with you on Mars?
I wonder, maybe we can use the special shampoo that the astronauts use so you don't have to wet your hair. Otherwise, maybe you can use a towel, or maybe you can use a hairdryer.
All right, so we've got time for 2 more questions. Yes? Yes, you're going to have to obviously work because you always want to look good in case someone else arrives on the planet. Okay, so we're going to end off quite soon because I know that you've got to go somewhere. But we want to thank you so much for giving us your time to tell us all about the adventures of Mars. I mean, I'm a bit worried. I'm worried that it might not happen for you. And I know how much time and energy you're putting into it. But if I look at it from a maths point of view, the Mars One project doesn't sound like it's going to happen when they say it's going to happen. And that worries me for your sake because I know how much you want to go. But if that didn't happen and you were still selected to go with someone else, you would jump at the opportunity.
Well, yeah, let's see. Let's say I don't get chosen to go with the Mars One project. I'll also be quite happy to stay on Earth. Let me tell you that if I do get selected, I will be over the moon to go to Mars, of course.
But you are prepared for the fact that they might say you're not making the top 24.
Yes, I think then I have the opportunity to still swim in the sea, to see my parents, to see my friends, and spend the rest of my life on Earth. That's not such a bad possibility.
No.
But if I do get chosen, then I'm super excited about going to Mars.
So you holding thumbs for it to happen and your parents are going, please don't choose her, please don't choose her.
What about classes for school?
Well, I'm not sure if they'll have actual classes, but you'll be able to learn.
There'll be internet, so all the stuff that you learn when you're on the computer, we'll have on Mars. Yeah.
All right, we'll ask one last question. You forgot your question. You haven't asked any questions. Would you like to ask a question? No? Okay. So, Adriana, we want to wish you all the best of luck. But we know that it's not just a little bit of luck, it's also a bit of skill. We know that there are 4 other competitors from South Africa. I call them competitors because this is a bit of a competition. I mean, you want to be chosen ahead of them. So do you have intimidation sessions? Do you send them nasty emails, or do you know them? Have you met them?
Actually, on Saturday, I'm going to meet the South African from Pretoria, Corvus.
Yeah.
We're going to have a coffee together on Saturday morning, so that'll be interesting.
That is very cool. And you've met
the other candidate from Durban.
From Durban, yes.
I'm from Durban. I live in Cape Town now. But
yeah.
I'm from Durban.
So that's 3, and the other 2?
I haven't met them yet. No.
Okay. Wow. So lots of excitement ahead, but still, 10 years is a while away. Yeah, when are they going to be taking you to fly you off to the next part of the training?
In the next year or so, they're going to narrow it down to 24.
Okay. So we're going to be watching like a hawk. We'll be watching to see what happens with Adriana, and hopefully, if she does get chosen, you'll be able to say that you were here discussing all of that with her. Can you believe it? Yes, you remember your question.
So excited that you're going. You want to sleep.
Yeah, you might need to get some sleep for 10 years.
Then I'll have some time
It
to
was your
read all about
birthday,
Mars
so
and the new home that I'm going to.
That is amazing. Yes.
Are they printed on Mnets? Everyone watches Mnets.
But this is an international thing. The whole world is watching, and the whole world doesn't have Mnets.
How about the sports channel?
Well, would it be a sports channel? Would it be
That is
a
a
science
sports
channel?
channel.
Maybe Discovery? Who knows? Who knows? I'm sure people will be fighting to broadcast the reality TV show. That would be quite exciting if it gets made. Yes.
What if it's your birthday? Are the other people going to give you presents?
Hopefully, so that'll be the first birthday party on Mars ever.
How many Mars rocks can you get for your birthday? But for you, that would be a gift.
Yeah, what could we give as a present on Mars? Yeah, maybe a Martian rock.
Sure. All right. Well, we're going to say thank you very much to Adriana. We're going to end the broadcast now, and we had a couple of guests who joined. I noticed we had Atalo from, he's from Sao Paulo, I think, and we had Maria, and she's from Argentina. So it was very nice to have a couple of international guests who popped into the room. I don't think you noticed them while they were in, but we've also had people who are watching it live at home on YouTube, and it will still be on livingmaths.com for those of you that would like to see it. So I'm going to end the broadcast over here. Let's go like this.